Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's 1:30, so we'll get our meeting rolling and we'll call the meeting to order. And first thing we'll deal with, of course, is to adopt the agenda. We have the recommendation that the agenda for the February 9th, 2026 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed as amended by removing the planning report dated January 28th, 2026 regarding part lot control exemption application ZBA 12/25 for 345 Durham Street East and bylaw number 11-2025 part lot control. Should that be 11-2026? 11-2026 for part lot control 5053745 Ontario Inc. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Burke and Councillor McCabe, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, Councillor Burke.
I have none.
Councillor McCabe.
I have none.
I have none to declare today. Councillor Rankin.
I have none.
Okay, thank you. We'll move into our closed meeting session. We have a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North go into a meeting at 1:31 p.m. that is closed to the public under subsection 239, number 2 of the Municipal Act 2001, specifically for item E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Rankin and Councillor McCabe, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
We pause the recording and lock the meeting.
Okay. I think the sign fell off the window.
Sorry, I can't see that.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah. Okay, to rise from the closed session, we have a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North rise from a closed meeting at 1:46 p.m. Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor McCabe. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we have another recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information the verbal report from Peter Hertz, solicitor, regarding 341 Smith Street, Wellington North OLT appeal. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rankin and Councillor Burke, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. And finally, the recommendation that the minutes of the closed meeting of council held on January 26th, 2026 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor McCabe. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll recess until 2 o'clock. We'll get started again then. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have some presentations this afternoon. We're going to mix up the order a little bit. We had BM Ross on first, but since Frank was the last to arrive, we're going to push him till the end. So we'll start with Eric if you're ready, Eric. Is that microphone on?
Thank you, Mayor Lennox, for inviting me up and for the invite, Karen, to outright come out today to present the 2026 SVCA budget. And I'll take the opportunity to talk about what we did in 25 a little bit too, if I could. So I'm Eric Downing. I'm the General Manager of Saugeen Conservation, and pleasure to be in front of you today. So with regards to the budget process at Saugeen Conservation at this junction, in November 27th or so, we did circulate, I believe, what you have in your package, which was a budget proposal approved in principle by our SVCA Board of Directors that did propose a 1.6% apportionment increase, otherwise known as levy, otherwise known as your contribution to our mandatory programs and services from Wellington North. And this is representing a budget that is disciplined, maintaining our programs and services that we did and have achieved in 24 and 25 into 26, and not necessarily starting any new big projects or programs, of course, though, for the 26 calendar year, especially given a bit of the elephant in the room with some of the provincial announcements that some of us have been wading through as we talk about and think about CAs. So Conservation Authority, I think we're all initiated here, governed by our Board of Directors. Steve McCabe, of course, on the Saugeen Valley Board of Directors, appreciating his work. Is it 10, 15 years maybe at this point, Steve? But yeah, that's somewhere in there. So thanks to him and thanks to Wellington North for your support over the years. Talking then about what we have to achieve in 26 and the budget that supports it. We have Category 1, 2, and 3 programs and services. Mandatory programs being Category 1, our planning and regs work, being permitting around floodplains and erosion areas. We have our water quality and our water resource department work, which is dealing with water erosion control infrastructure, dams, our own and municipal, and in some instances where municipalities sign us up to help them with those. And also that includes our flood warning section. Source protection is also included in Category 1, though entirely funded by the province still. And we also have our forestry and land section in our mandatory programs and services, all supported by apportionment from our member municipalities. So in our planning and regulations section, I'll continue to update you on where we are in our budget process. So of course, November 27th, you had 30 days of comment whereby municipal councils could review that proposed budget, approved in principle at the time, not final approval, and provide any comments back that you might have. We then have opportunity to take those comments in. The board receives those at a board meeting and has opportunity to have a final vote on that budget or give staff further direction. So at our AGM, January 15th, we did get approval for our budget, unanimous support from our board of directors, which did incorporate and did hear any comments we received from any member municipalities. We had received one from Chatsworth. We hadn't received any from any other municipalities, but certainly a dismal budget, a much lower increase than we'd been proposing in years prior, with a 1.6% apportionment increase being less than cost of living, of course. So what did we achieve with in 25 and into 26? What did we propose? So in our planning and regulations section, we have some very exciting achievements in 25. We implemented our new file tracking system, which is, yes, the eyes are rolling. Not exactly the most exciting thing, but actually quite a significant generational achievement. We've been utilizing a DOS-based file tracking system digitally for some time, which worked, allowed us to connect with our file history on any given property. If anybody were to come in our watershed asking about permitting, asking about new tile drainage, new filling, we would be able to find those files eventually, but they were physical files, and that meant a lot of paper existed over 50 years of work on the planning and regulation front. This new system will allow us to incorporate all that old file work, scanning it digitally, having it at our fingertips and at our staff's fingertips immediately when that inquiry comes in. And that was implemented anyway, moving forward with new files in 25. We're very excited for that. We also had another exciting initiative approved in 25. It was our policy, environmental planning policies and regulation manual. Again, not exactly exciting, but also a generational, last updated in 2018, being our first manual in 2017, 2018. So it was due for an update, and we have achieved that in 25. And that allows us to be consistent with somebody comes in with a floodplain proposal in Mount Forest. It's the same answer that they'll get if they come in with a floodplain proposal in Southampton or anywhere else in the watershed, making our staff consistent and allowing the public to see into our permitting to understand what they can expect for policies applicable to them, depending what they have on their property, as opposed to a bit of wading into regulation and provincial natural hazard direction, which was sort of the existence before. So those are two big initiatives in 25, but we also started and had a great momentum in 25 with regards to our Mennonite outreach strategy. We see a lot of Mennonite communities coming into and existing in our watershed, and they pose a whole new group of opportunities and challenges with regards to permitting. They don't see into many of the ways that we educate most folks on where to come and talk to us, when to come and talk to us, because they don't have that digital interface. So going and reaching out to them directly is what we've tried and are getting great traction for in 25 and in 26. We also have a number of mapping initiatives that we've worked to approve and get in place along the shoreline in Southampton and Huron-Kinloss in 25, and we look to expand that program inland. Durham actually is coming along as well, and into some rural areas in 26 in our planning and reg section. We just hot off the press actually did do a tabulation for our permit timelines, as it was the request of Conservation Ontario in our section. Often you hear about some horror stories from planning and permitting, but on the whole, we do track and monitor our permitting timelines, and I'm happy to say that we are indeed meeting our provincially mandated timelines. The overwhelming majority of the time, we still had a 2%, 98% on track anyway, 2% still outstanding. There's still room for improvement, but this is regards to our mandated times to issue permits of 30 or 90 days, depending on the size of the permit, size of the proposal from the province. About 200 or about 300 permits last year, and though the average time to issue a permit once we had a complete application was 3.5 days. So for the largest part, we are over exceeding our timelines and doing well there. A couple files still we need to keep a close eye on. In our lands and forest section, we manage 21,000 acres of public property or public lands, basically, that are not public lands, sorry, forestry lands that are accessible to the public. Also includes about 17 conservation areas that are available to the public for trails and recreation. We do have a membership program that we have been promoting with a couple recent events, even I'm blending into 26 a little bit here, whereby we just recently had a candlelit snowshoe hike at our Sulphur Spring Conservation Area property that did see 610 people come out, which was a surprise to the 10 or 12 volunteer staff I had available. But a real indication that there is appetite for our properties, eagerness to get out into the watershed, see nature, connect with nature, and we still are eager to do that with folks. And we can and do over our 17 conservation areas that were over 21,000 acres. And we did, given our 75th anniversary and celebration last year, open a new conservation area at Formosa Conservation Area at our main office. So we're happy to do that for the public and have staff largely hike the trails at lunch. For now, anyway, it's going to get more momentum. We did also get support from RTO 7 to support some tourism initiatives at our Bluffs campground. We got some federal development money to support additional vault privies and trails and bridges at our Stony Island Conservation Area. And we did also expand our accessible trails at Sulphur Spring in 25, looking to do more in 26 to allow more people to get into nature, as is part of our tasks. We also have a couple other campground updates but though I would note that our campgrounds do pay for their own upgrades themselves. They are self-sufficient and or providing monies to the CA to help support our other initiatives. On our water resources front, we had our flood warning section. We have a flood warning section that forecasts flooding, watches watershed conditions, has gauge system throughout the watershed to tells us where the water levels are and what flows are at. And they continue to make more robust that system in 2025 and look to get more training in municipal hands in 26 with regards to that system, because we do interact quite a bit when there is a flood condition with your staff on where is the trouble areas going to be, where could you consider closing some roads or worse, depending on what that watershed condition is. So we continue to work there. Our water resource structures as well, working within this department. We interact with Wellington North on our water resources structures with regards to, for instance, the Wellington North Dam, or Mount Forest Dam, where we did put in some new fencing and a fall arrest structure in 25 to get you some value and some progress on some of your structures in your jurisdiction, for instance, from our water resources perspective. Much more work planned in 26, Paisley Dikes, Inverhuron Outlet Pipe, Hanover Dam. There's a number of structures always needing things as everything's aging, as I'm sure you're aware of in your municipality as well, on the infrastructure side. Lastly, we do have our Category 3 water quality program that is still active and flourishing in the watershed. We completed our 20-year water quality program report in 24, as that program did start after the Walkerton water event, which did show and got so much momentum behind water quality and all things water quality and understanding where and if there is water quality issues on the landscape. We want to know early, we want to know often, and our water quality section is a part of that system. So we are and have been doing presentations to municipal councils with regards to that 21-year report, basically now at this point. And though we look forward to 26 with another watershed report card year, where we actually every 5 years do watershed report cards, and I think it's 26, it might be 26 working to 27, but whereby we actually give grades to our different sub-watersheds, South Saugeen River, Rocky Saugeen River, for instance, to give everybody a real easy snapshot and clear indication of how each watershed is doing. And if there are issues within a watershed or real challenges in one, that's where you can identify it and start putting in place policy to help the situation with regards to that specific watershed. So that's a bit of a summary of where we are at then for our 2026 budget, what we have achieved in 25, what we hope to achieve in 26. And we very much appreciate Wellington North's support in all things that we're working on and have been working on at Saugeen Conservation. Again, a status quo and maintain and keep healthy our programs in 26. Not sure what exactly 27 will bring yet, of course, with the provincial news, but eager to keep local conservation work going and eager to do that with Wellington North. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Eric. Any questions from council for Eric? Well, looks like you're getting off easy today, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot. We'll next welcome up Phil and Ed, since we're on the Conservation Authority theme. Welcome.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mayor Lennox, council members, staff, and public. My name's Ed Podnowitz. I'm sit on council for the town of Minto, and I sit on the board of directors representing Minto, Mapleton, and Wellington North at the Conservation Authority. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to review MVCA's draft 2026 work plan and budget. In your meeting package, there's a letter from MVCA Chair Ed McGugan along with MVCA 2026 work plan priorities and budget. MVCA's work plan and budget has been developed based on services and programs agreement that we have with all our member municipalities. The agreement and work plan focus on strengthening MVCA's capacity to improve the health of forests, soil, and water throughout the watershed. We will highlight the major priorities that MVCA is planning to undertake in 2026. We'd also like to note that MVCA will be celebrating our 75th anniversary in 2026, and you're all welcome to come. Before we review the priorities, I'd like to outline MVCA's vision, mission, and ends. So MVCA's vision is that we are working for a healthy environment. MVCA's mission is providing leadership to protect and enhance water, forests, and soils. And MVCA's ends are to protect life, property, and prevent soil disruption from flooding and erosion hazards, to protect water and related resources for present and future generations, and to protect and expand natural areas. So our corporate services priorities are to focus on the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks proposal to consolidate conservation authorities. MVCA will be advocating the ministry to work with the Association of Municipalities, Conservation Ontario, and other stakeholders to develop an implementation strategy that has a greater chance of working than the ministry developing a strategy on their own. We'll also be focusing on renewing the services and programs agreement with all municipalities in the watershed. The new 4-year agreement will go from June 2026 to June 2030. We will be sending you information on the new agreement in March. Last but not least, MVCA has organized a number of activities to celebrate our 75th anniversary. I will now turn the presentation over to Phil Beer, General Manager, to review the draft priorities for each service area and the draft budget. Phil?
No matter what happens, we're going to celebrate this year. So yeah, I'll just hit some of the highlights. I'll hit some of the highlights in the newsletter there. In terms of flood and erosion safety, the two big things we'll be doing this year is a watershed hydrology model so that we can better forecast how and when major runoff events will impact communities located in flood-prone areas across the watershed. Right now, we just have a hydrology model that covers the Harriston or the North Maitland watershed. Second, we're working on a coastal resilience strategy with our 3 shoreline municipalities. We've got $750 million worth of development at risk from erosion, bluff collapse, and gully erosion. And we're working with the municipalities to help them figure out how to deal with those areas in terms of where can we relocate development, and development that does go over the bluff, what the responsibilities are of the municipality and the landowner to deal with that structure. In terms of watershed health, we started a forest health assessment 3 or 4 years ago. We've completed that assessment, and now we're working with Ontario Woodlot Association and the forest conservation bylaw officers in each of the 4 counties to share that information and figure out how we can all work together to improve the health of forests. Forestry is a major economic sector in our region, so we do need healthy forests. We're in year 2 of our aquatic health assessment. This year's work will focus on the health of life living in our rivers and streams, and the findings of this work will help us focus our efforts on where they're most needed. You can't manage what you don't measure, so that's why we need to do these health assessments. In terms of watershed stewardship, our focus is to help landowners keep soil and nutrients on the land and out of watercourses and Lake Huron. And the key system changes that we're working on with landowners through our stewardship program is cover crops, rural stormwater management, and buffers along watercourses. And in our conservation areas, the big news this year is we're constructing a new outdoor pavilion at Wawanosh Valley Conservation Area to replace the nature center that was there for decades. Our foundation has raised $160,000 to put up that structure this fall. So it won't be coming out of the cost apportionment from the municipalities. Now turning to our draft budget, and unlike the Saugeen, we're at draft budget stage. We won't finalize ours until March. I'll give you a little background before I go through the budget. One of the key priorities that our board set is to develop a stable financial base so that we can fund the services and programs that we've agreed to provide in our agreement with all our municipalities. So what we do is we develop a 3-year work plan and a budget forecast, which we update every year because 3-year forecasts aren't great going 3 years in ahead. You always have to adjust them. We've discovered it's becoming increasingly difficult to plan even 3 years ahead due to the uncertainty with what projects will be funded and what restrictions the province will put in place for things like the fees for planning and regs. So we haven't been able to raise the fees for those planning and regs fees for 3 years now. We also don't know project funding we use project funding from the provincial and federal government to help us save money in our operating budget so that we can often charge staff time to these projects. This allows us to put money away to fund infrastructure projects such as flood forecast equipment and conservation area infrastructure. So for example, we built a new workshop last year so we could keep all our vehicles inside. Took us 20 years to raise money for that project, but we wanted to do it with our own money rather than doing a special levy on the municipalities. So we were able to build that new workshop and refurbish our old pole shed. It's about $300,000 worth of project without doing a special levy, but it took us 20 years to do it. For the past 2 years, we've identified that we need to increase our cost apportionment by $175,000 per year. So these increases were done to improve our capacity to undertake watershed health assessments, do watershed stewardship extension work, and to cover the cost of phasing in a salary and benefits review that we approved in 2022. So 2026 will be the last year for that level of increase. We'll have finally caught up and got things stabilized. And in 2027, the projected cost apportionment will be $128,000. Our operating budget is $3.4 million in 2026. Our projects budget is $1.1 million. It should be noted that the province provides $59,300 towards that operating budget. In 1995, when the province used to provide 85% funding, it's taken us 30 years basically to replace the funding that they used to provide with municipal funding, user fees, and donations. The province also used to provide technical and policy assistance through a conservation authorities branch that they did not charge us for. Now with this new agency they're creating, they're saying that they're going to charge the cost of that agency to the conservation authorities, which in turn goes through the municipalities. So there's been a lot of changes over the last 30 years. In 1995, we had 19 full-time staff and a couple of contract staff. In 2026, we are at 21 full-time staff, 2 of which are part-time, and 5 contract staff in 30 years. If it wasn't for computer technology, we would not have been able to sort of keep up. But that's just to show you in 30 years what the change has been. But this is nothing new to you guys. You know all about provincial downloading. So Wellington North's increase this year is $8,611 over the 2025 apportionment. Your share of the cost apportionment did increase slightly from 2.7% to 2.92% due to the increase in CVA. So we get a CVA schedule that tells us how to apportion the assessment from the province each year. We have nothing to do with how that schedule is developed. We just are sent it, and that's what we're to use. So that's, we also have $15 million worth of assets. So the other part of the increase is going towards increasing, having funding to look after our asset base. So we have $140,000 a year to put towards our assets and our projects in terms of looking after them. So I'll turn it over to Ed for some closing remarks.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address council this afternoon. We look forward to hearing your feedback and would also like to invite representatives from council and staff to attend MVCA's annual meeting on February 18th, being held at the Blythe Memorial Hall in Blythe, starting at 2 p.m. The annual meeting will be the kickoff for MVCA's 75th anniversary. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, gentlemen. Any questions from council for these 2 gentlemen? No, I don't think so.
It's easy.
Again, thanks for making the trek, and
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you very much.
thank you. So, Frank, now that we made you wait.
It's on. Okay, Mayor, councillor, staff, thank you for this opportunity that you gave to BM Ross to work on this technical servicing update, a study for your sewage and water systems in Mount Forest. We appreciate the opportunity. And as you can see, I guess there is a PowerPoint going to be shown. And seeing as the conservation authorities touted how they're celebrating their 75th, we can also tout, you can see in the logo that this year is BM Ross's 75th year, as well as an employee-owned small engineering consulting firm. So we're looking forward to celebrating that milestone for our company as well. If you can go to the next slide. So the agenda is going to be just outlining quickly what the scope of the study was, what it all was focused on, just to identify what the growth areas are as presented in a growth plan that another consultant had prepared for you, and what those projections are for growth. Just to identify what the existing key system components are for your two systems, your water system and your sanitary sewage system. And those are what you rely on, those key things for servicing your community in Mount Forest. And then we'll outline quickly what the conclusions were for both water and sewage. And the focus, of course, would be on projected future growth and how you will service that growth. Water storage is a big ticket item, so we'll talk a bit about the timeline for that. Wastewater treatment plant as well is maybe not as significant of an expense in this case because of what happened in the original design for that plant. But again, it's very important to pay attention to that because it takes time to implement expansion for a wastewater treatment plant. So we'll talk about the timeline for that as well. And then we'll talk about our recommendations, in particular for the next 5 to 10 years, the focus will be on. And then at the end, there'll be a time for questions, or feel free to interrupt me if you want clarification on something that I say. Next slide. Okay, so the scope of the study was relying, first of all, it relied on the growth plan, and there was a target of 10,500 population by year 2051. We reviewed the last 5 years of sanitary sewage flows and water usage because we need that information to predict what growth will utilize for those capacities. We had a water distribution system model already, and we just updated it and used it to look at existing problem spots, if any, and how to extend servicing to growth areas. We looked at your well supply capacities to see how long in the future they should be able to supply your community with the water supply that it needs. Water storage, we looked at that one. And again, as mentioned, that's a key, huge financial component of your system that you need to carefully evaluate and decide how and when to implement it. And so there'll be a slide to focus on that. We did create a sanitary sewage distribute or collection system model, which we use to evaluate your existing system and how to service growth areas. The pumping stations that you have 4 of them, we looked at the capacities of those and focused on 20 years because that's typically how long you look at for if you need to change out pumps to bigger pumps. Wastewater treatment plant, again, we looked at that to review its capacity now and when you need to expand it. And then we did also prepare some select capital cost estimates for the identified future works. What our study did not do class environmental assessment work for any of the works that would need that to implement. And then we didn't evaluate the water storage alternatives. That was done the last 5 years ago, and a preferred alternative was selected at that time. But we'll talk about that later on, about whether or not you should proceed with another evaluation and why. And then the wastewater treatment plant, again, we just simply looked at capacity. We didn't look at any parts of that, the plant, as to evaluating it. That's, again, something that your others would be involved with, and it wasn't part of the study scope. Next slide. So future development areas, this is from your growth plan. So there were 4 key growth areas. It's hard to see from a distance, but you have it in front of you. So future development area 1 is really where TD Smith is in that area. So east of London Road. Future development area 2 is on the east side of London Road there between Wellington Street and Sligo Road. Future development area 3 is south of Murphy Street and Oxford Street. So at the southeast corner of town. And future development area 4 is on the east side of Lovers Lane. So those were identified by the growth plan. And they focused on, they said that for future growth, these growth areas, that the focus should be on future development area number 2, so the east side of London Road, as well as future development area 3, so south of Murphy Street and Oxford Street. I do note that, of course, as you're aware, you've got some key draft plans that have been approved already. So for the next 5 or so years, probably growth is going to be focused on Deer Ridge, so south of South Water Street, north of Bentley Street there. You got Sunvale Homes and Mamta condos on Cork Street. So those are probably going to be where growth will be for the next few years before you probably see anything potentially any interest in those other future development areas for growth. And there are some other vacant lands that in the past there has been some interest, but again, they need some significant extensions of sewage and water. And one spot is at the southwest corner, Sligo and London Road there. There's a good chunk of property there that's vacant still at this time. Next slide. So this is just a simple figure showing what the growth projections are based on the growth plan. So there's the first one is this last year, 6234. And the smaller line, 2617, is the number of households. Their target was 2051, 10,500. The one in 2045 simply is because for things like sewage pumping stations, we tend to look at 20 years for those ones to see if there needs to be upgrade to the pump capacities. And the last one, 2075, that's 50 years away. We added that one because for something like a key facility like a water tower, you want that to last, like you want to make sure it's sized for 50 or so years because it's going to be up there for a long time, that kind of a facility, and it's a big ticket item as well. Next slide. So your existing water system, you have more than 37 kilometers of water main. You got 4 wells that can produce 132.6 liters per second. So you've got lots and lots of water supply. You've got 1 storage facility, your standpipe. It's got 2,000 cubic meters of storage. Was recently refurbished, painted inside and out. And there's a booster pumping station at the base of that tower that allows you to use the whole volume of that standpipe. You also have standby power at that location as well, which can allow well 3 to pump and the booster pumping station to operate during a long, if there's a power outage that's for an extended period of time, so you can continue to supply water to your community. Next slide. For your sewage system, you have more than 31 kilometers of gravity sanitary sewer. You have half a kilometer of low pressure sewer, so essentially little force mains. Something a bit new in Mount Forest. You had that in Durham Street townhouses, 10 units there, and then Wellington Street East as well. So each home has their own grinder pump. They're connected to a 4-inch pressure sewer line, and that discharges to gravity sewer. And just note again that not all of your community is serviced with your municipal sewage system. There are some on septic system, in particular those that are south of the South Saugeen River at this time. You have 4 municipal sewage pumping stations. There were a small one on Perth Street, which just services some industrial commercial lots on Perth Street. Cork Street sewage pumping station just by Waterloo Street there is 67 liters per second. Durham Street sewage pumping station, which actually really fronts on Foster Street right now, but it used to be right at the corner, 130 liters per second. So you got some decent sized pumping stations on Cork and Durham Street, servicing a good portion of your community. And then the North Water Street sewage pumping station, of course, which was where your former wastewater treatment plant was located. And its capacity is 173.6 liters per second, which matches what your wastewater treatment plant hydraulic capacity is. And it receives all the sewage from all of the community that's serviced by your municipal sewage collection system. So all the other pumping stations pump into the gravity sewer, and it eventually flows to the North Water Street station and then to the wastewater treatment plant. And that one is currently approved for 2818 cubic meters per day, but it was built physically to accommodate 3,500 cubic meters per day. And that study work, that receiver impact assessment needs to be completed to the ministry's satisfaction before you can bump it up to that 3,500 cubic meters a day. Next slide. That's just a diagram. I don't think we really have to go through, just pointing out where your key facilities are, where the well supplies are, where your pumping stations are, where your existing standpipe is and where the wastewater treatment plant is located. Next slide. All right, so conclusions for the water system. Your water usage is 275 liters per capita a day with normal peak demands. What that means is it appears you've got a really good tight water system. It's well maintained, even though you have maybe 3 to 4 kilometers of older cast iron water main. It's the demand is on the low side of what ministry guidelines would say, so it looks good that way. You don't have a lot of leakage or high water usage in your Mount Forest system. Water quality is acceptable. There's no known trends. We know that sodium's a little bit high at well 5, so the Ministry of Health just needs to be notified about that, but it's still considered acceptable, and there's no trends as far as we're aware. Firm well supply capacity. So again, the target from the growth plan was year 2051. You got lots of water supply. You actually can, based on projected growth, you have more than enough to get you to about 2075. And that's firm well supply capacity. So that's with your largest well supply out of commission for any kind of reason. That's to do with ministry guidelines that say you want a reliable system, you want redundancy. So they recommend that you consider your actual capacity to be with your biggest supply out of service, mechanical failure, or something like that. So again, you've got lots of water supply. Okay, water storage, on the other hand, is less than recommended for that. But at this time, because you have so much extra well supply capacity, you've got you can compensate for that lack of storage. But our prediction is based on looking at the risks of that and what that surplus is by year 2034 is probably when you should be thinking that you need to have additional storage implemented by then. So of course you got to start that process ahead of that to plan for that. For your water distribution system for servicing those 2 key growth areas, you would need to extend a 12-inch water main on Sligo Road out to London Road. And then to service future development area 3, which is south side of Murphy Street, you'd need a 10-inch water main, which would have to go to a booster pumping station because it's higher elevations there. So they would have to be serviced by that. Likely it would be a developer that would have to do that if it stays as one parcel, which it is right now, as far as we are aware. But again, to service that area based on the higher elevations would require a booster pumping station to achieve the normal pressure that you want of 50 PSI, 350 kPa. And then for well supply, again, you have standby power at well 3 location, but by year 2028, that won't be enough to keep up with average day demand. And again, it's just a risk scenario. The ministry guideline recommends that you have standby power to make sure that your treated water you can provide to meet average day demand in case there's a extended power failure. So that's just something for consideration. It's a risk thing that the municipality would have to take into consideration and decide if it really wanted to proceed with something like that. Next slide, please. So this one's going to be hard to see again on the screen, but this is the proposed waterworks in a pictorial format with highlighting of the areas or the water main extensions or replacements that you would need to service growth areas primarily. It shows the elevated tank site location that was selected the last study 5 years ago, which is on land that you own just on the north side of Mount Forest in West Gray. And for the next, on this figure, it shows at the very top there, the highlighted orangish line, what you would need to connect the water tower at that location to your existing system. You only have to go the one direction for now. Eventually, you want to loop it around to Highway 6. And then the other growth is South Water Street at the very bottom. That is going to be paid mostly by the developer to put in a 12-inch water main to feed the Deer Ridge subdivision there, but it'll connect to some vacant lots. So there might be some contribution by the township for that, but primarily driven by the developer. So there's costs in the table there as well. the one that we'll talk about later, which is a significant cost, and I'll explain why it's so much more than the last technical study, is the estimated cost for a new elevate, if it's an elevated tank structure at the north end, is $9.1 million. Like, it's a big amount, big increase. And so I'll explain that later as to why that's the case. So I'm not going to go through the rest of the highlights on that one. They're more for works that would be done. We were talking 10 or plus years probably before the other ones would be necessary. So that's the conclusions for the water. For the sewage, your sewage flow is about 350 liters per capita a day. Again, that's on the low side of ministry guidelines, so it's pretty good. And this is not unusual for many municipalities. During wet weather flow events, you do have some significant spikes in the flow going through your sewage collection system, 6 to 8 times above your average day demand. And occasionally, once every few years, you have had bypassing to the river. But again, it's not known to be a concern at this time because it's very infrequent, and it's not unusual for municipalities to have that circumstance because of significant infiltration in older systems. So we modeled the gravity sewer system, and you have to keep in mind, there's a lot of assumptions made in such a model because there's no flow monitoring through the collection system of the sewers. So you have to kind of take the results with a bit of grain of salt, but it does indicate that at some point in the future, the capacity of the existing gravity sewer on Wellington Street West, there's a section there that it might get exceeded in the future when more growth happens that feeds through that section of the sewer. But again, that can be reevaluated again the next servicing study, and possibly, in the future, maybe there needs to be some sort of monitoring to see what flows really are like. So there are problems when you model things. You have to make some pretty gross assumptions sometimes, and that was based on our distributing some of the wet weather flow events through the system generally. And again, it might be more focused in one area versus another, and not actually cause a problem on Wellington Street West in the future. But that's like decades away where that might become a problem. So there's no urgency in evaluating that further at this time. So again, we looked at extensions for servicing the growth areas for your sewage collection system, and that's depicted on a following figure. There will be deep sewers needed to service those 2 growth areas that were recommended in your growth plan. Future development area 2, you need to extend by like a 300 millimeter diameter to a 250, I think it was, gravity sewer, like 6 meters deep from Church Street on Sligo Road out towards London Road to be able to service those areas by gravity for future development area 2. And how and when you implement that too probably would get tied to something like the Durham Street, or sorry, the vacant property that's at the southwest corner of London and Sligo there, because you don't want to put in this big deep sanitary sewer ahead of knowing whether they want service connections off of that vacant land. So again, that's something just to keep in mind for that, but it's an expensive one. It's on the county road. You'd be losing the whole road, so it's fairly expensive to do that. And then for future development area 3, of course, you need the South Water Street sewage pumping station first, which is moving forward to the next phase. And then you need a relatively deep sewer from that point towards Highway 6, get it underneath Highway 6, probably by jack and boring. And then there's a low point on Murphy Street to the east of Main Street that you would need to get under for gravity servicing. So it would be fairly deep as well, and expensive to do that. So we do present cost estimates again in our report for that. With respect to pumping stations, we do have a figure showing where those would be needed, and future development area 1 would need a pumping station. So that's by the TD Smith property. Lover's Lane as well. Most of that can't be serviced by gravity. It would require a pumping station. And of course, Deer Ridge is going to have that pumping station on South Water Street. And Sunvale Homes on Cork Street is going to have a pumping station too when that proceeds. And again, you know, you get, as communities grow, all the easy spots, if we can put it that way, you know, have been serviced already. And now it gets to be the more difficult spots to continue servicing, and more expensive spots to extend servicing often is what happens in communities. For the Cork Street and Durham Street sewage pumping station capacities, they've got lots of capacity the way they are currently equipped with pumps and all the electrical and other components. So they're good for more than 20 years. So that can just get reevaluated in the next servicing study update. Your North Water Street pumping station capacity, as I mentioned before, it's tied to your wastewater treatment plant, so you can't increase the capacity of the North Water Street sewage pumping station. Over time, again, you know, sewage flows will increase to that station, but the only time it's a problem is during wet weather flow events. So the only thing you could potentially do right now or in the near future would be to consider whether or not you wanted to improve on-site storage there for equalization storage at the North Water Street sewage pumping station. Right now, there's a couple tanks that were leftovers from when it was the sewage treatment plant. They're used. It's my understanding they're manual though. They have to be manually pumped out by your operator. But potentially maybe there's some additional storage that you could consider there. And it's something maybe you want to take a look at the next technical servicing study in 5 years, whether you want to try to reduce the potential for spills to the South Saugeen River. And again, they have only happened, I think, maybe twice since the wastewater treatment plant was built, so not very frequent. And then the last one for your wastewater treatment plant, as I mentioned before, it's projected to need to be expanded to that 3,500 cubic meters per day capacity by 2034, because that 2818 will run out of capacity, and it might need to be increased before then by a year or two, because if you're going to proceed with co-treatment of leachate from the Riverston landfill site. Next slide, please. So again, this just shows pictorially what the conclusions of the study has come up with respect to extensions of your sanitary collection system, and pointing out where you know, the South Water Street pumping station that you are aware of, and the focus again in the next couple of years is going to be South Water Street, a new sanitary sewer going to the dead end and then further into the Deer Ridge subdivision. And that's going to be primarily at the developer's expense, but at the same time, you can service existing homes there and vacant lots. And then the other one would be whether or not you're going to provide any kind of sanitary servicing to the property that you own in West Grey, and or to connect to the water tower to provide an outlet for just maintenance purposes to discharge water. So those are really the only two on here that probably are going to happen in the next 5 or so years. The rest are probably longer term extensions to your system. I do point out that, like, there's the potential for looping or putting sanitary servicing down Mount Forest Drive, an extension of Mount Forest Drive to Irwin Lytle Drive. Same with water main, but the road allowance doesn't go all the way through. You'd have to acquire property for a road allowance there, or an easement if you ever wanted to loop the sanitary system and water system through there to service some properties there. Next slide. All right, so water storage expansion timeline. So as I mentioned, this is a pretty key and very expensive component of your system. Pictorially, that orange dashed line is where you're at right now, the 2,000 cubic meters. And so you can see that it shows 3,250 cubic meters is what you should have right now based on ministry guidelines. And again, keep in mind the ministry guidelines are guidelines. They base it on different risk factors. but most people go by the ministry guidelines. And it's in their guidelines, they do say it's a township decision as to whether you implement all their guidelines or not. And then when we get all the way up to 2075, 50-year time frame, we're looking at 5,300 cubic meters. So that's another 3,300 cubic meters of storage. So what happened compared to the last technical study 5 years ago was it was a different growth projection at that time. You've done your growth plan now, so it's a more robust plan for higher growth. So that's about 35% increase in the storage calculation. The other thing is in talking to a key elevated tank contractor, the price compared to 5 years ago has doubled for elevated tanks. So when you combine the increased volume based on your projected growth and the doubling of the construction cost, we're at that $9.1 million expense. So it's a very expensive undertaking for the municipality. We do, again, as I pointed out, you do have at this time projected to 2034 to implement something like that if you want to follow ministry guidelines, and that's based on your surplus well supply capacity. And then I just mentioned, risk mitigation considerations for the time being right now too. Like by 2028, your standby power at well 3 won't service enough wells to provide average day demand. So there's some risk you could run out of water, but if you had another one and you have a power failure, then at least you can keep your water tower fuller most of the time if there's also a big demand. And the last bullet there is just consideration for reevaluating your storage alternatives. 5 years ago, it was selected an elevated tank as the alternative. There are other potential types of storage. There's ground level storage, which could have the advantage of you can phase chambers in that because it's a concrete ground level facility. Disadvantage, of course, it's not it's got pumps, mechanical equipment, electrical equipment. It's not floating on the system, so it's got disadvantages as well. But that's something again that the municipality could consider reevaluating its water storage alternatives because of the significant change to the cost for proceeding with a new elevated tank, which would be your second one, and maintaining the standpipe.
One question right now, Steve?
Can I, yeah, if you don't mind, sorry to interrupt, I was just, if you go, sorry, on this slide. So we have the orange dash on this where we're at now.
Yeah.
But the guideline is we should be 1,250 more.
Yeah, right.
Is that
Correct, right now. Yeah.
just wanted to understand, so we're a little wee bit behind.
Yeah, at this time, but again, because your well supply capacity is so big, like you got 4 really big well supplies.
That kind of offsets it.
Yeah, that
Okay.
offsets it, and operational experience too just indicates, just talking to your operator, like there's never been a problem keeping that tower full, even with just a couple of the wells, right? So. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, we're just having some technical issues, and it seems to be anybody who's looking at this on their laptop is stuck at that slide. So mine is working up here, but I'm not sure, Lisa, what you're able to see at home. Are you doing that yourself? Are you moving through the agenda?
Yeah, I'm just doing it.
Yeah, so, yeah. Sorry about that. So didn't.
Oh,
No, it's fine. You want me to carry on or?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, next slide, please. So for the wastewater treatment plant, so there's just a graph there just showing the projected average day flow based on the growth plan. So that's just pictorially showing you that by 2035, you're going to run out of capacity at the wastewater treatment plant. And that might get advanced by a year or so because of if you're going to co-treat leachate. So that's you're 10 years out, 9 to 10 years. So again, as you're fully aware, some wastewater treatment plants to expand capacities can take time, but this one's a little bit simpler in that it's already been built for the 3,500 cubic meters per day. So it's a matter of doing some studies, checking equipment performance to make sure the equipment at the plant is up to snuff as well, that it can handle that increased capacity. So yeah, this is another key component of your system for being able to grow in your community of Mount Forest. Next slide, please. So recommendations, these are mostly focused on the next 5 years. So South Water Street Sewage Pumping Station, that's planned to proceed to tendering in the near future and construction because of the development interest there. Then as mentioned, that South Water Street water main and sanitary sewer that would go west of unopened Bristol Street to the dead end and then continue on into the new development. So again, those are developer-driven projects. Wastewater treatment plant. And so we're suggesting before 2030, you would want to try to finish your receiver impact assessment and consult with the Ministry of Environment and the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. Check your equipment performances and continue on with leachate co-treatment considerations. And I have received information 2 weeks ago from the county's consultants, so I will have a memo out about that soon, which really is just going to say it's no different than it was essentially with the previous evaluation we did. That indicates that it is possible to co-treat the leachate. There's nothing too unusual with the sample results that we collected during the last 3 years. Another item for recommendations is to consider additional standby power at one of your other well supplies. And that's just really it's a risk question as to if you don't have to do it. It's just really, it can be a good idea to comply with ministry guidelines that you have enough you have standby power, enough well supplies that you can meet your average day demands. So that's suggested to give consideration in a few years. The next one is in the next few years to take another look at your water storage needs, just because of the big change in the cost for what was selected 5 years ago. So we're proposing a budget of $25,000 for that evaluation, and suggest in the next 3 years or so that you should do that. It would be good to do that in advance of your next technical servicing study update, so that component is completed before then and can be part of the technical update. The next one is where the water tower was proposed was in West Gray jurisdiction, property that the township owns. And again, there's maybe different alternatives there. One thing that changed since the last technical servicing study is the province had changed the class environmental assessment requirements a couple of years ago. So for your actual elevated tank site there, you don't need to do class EA because you own the property. There's no known environmental sensitivities of the property. You'd have to do a screening for the archaeology, but there's probably not going to be anything there. So you don't need a class EA for the water tower itself, but you do for the water main or sewers or any road that you want to build to access it if it's more than just a driveway. So you still need class environmental assessment, but it would not be related to the elevated tank. It would be related to the water main and or any sewer that you want to put in there. An option potentially, like we don't know what you want to do with your property in the adjacent municipality, but you might want to start thinking about what you want to do. Of course, the problem is it's in a different municipality. So if you were to act like a developer and another municipality worked for, they did this for in their industrial park. It's a bit different, but they went through draft plan or going through draft plan process to create residential in part of their industrial property. So they're acting as the developer to develop it residential. They plan to sell it to a developer, but they're doing the process, going through draft plan process, acting as the developer for that. So potentially could do that too. But then of course the problem is the properties in West Gray. Who's going to own the roads when it's done? Who's going to get the taxes? All that kind of stuff, right? Normally in a case like that, you'd be looking at annexation if anything, but we don't know what your intentions are for that, but it's something maybe you want to give consideration to because it can kind of, if you still want your water storage in West Gray, it'd be good to understand what you plan to do there to make sure whatever is done for the elevated tank will mesh in with what your plans are for your West Gray property there as well. And the last one is just a update study again in 5 years, just to keep abreast of where things are at in your sewage system and your water system, so that you can ensure that you're planning for servicing your growth. So that's it, Mayor. Any questions or comments?
Questions for Frank? Any questions at this point, Frank? Thanks for the update. I think it's certainly more time to respond to some of the growth pressures than I thought that we had. So I think that's a good news part of the story. Yeah, the whole piece of where we put that elevated water storage, if it's going to remain in another municipality, and we probably at least would need to have planning permission to put a water tower on it, because I think right now it's designated as prime ag.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a number of considerations that need to be dealt with before we get to that stage.
Yep.
Not seeing any more questions, so thank you very much, Frank.
Thank you very much. Take care.
So we have a report to receive. Did you have anything else you wanted to comment on, Tammy, with regard to this?
Through you, Chair Lennox. So I just want to say the study was very well done. It definitely reviews the current infrastructure that we have in place and also what the future planning is for future growth. Staff will be able to use the report and the recommendations to develop a work plan and bring forward those projects to council for consideration and future budget deliberations.
And I assume, given the changing estimate on the elevated storage, that this will change some things in our development charges program as well. Okay, so I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report INF 2026-001, being a report on Mount Forest Master Water and Wastewater Servicing Technical Update, and that council directs staff to post the Mount Forest Master Servicing Technical Update report on the township website. Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to adoption of the minutes. So I have a recommendation here that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on January 26th, 2026 be adopted as circulated. Mover to seconder, Councillor Rankin and Councillor Hearn, thank you. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Identification of items requiring separate discussion. So the pulled out for further discussion. Oh, then need to do that. Okay, I have to do that separately now. Sorry. Back to the public meeting minutes. We have a recommendation here that the minutes of the public meeting of council held on January 13th, 2026 and January 26th, 2026 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor McCabe. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we'll get to identification of items for separate discussion. And I have pulled out 15B2, which is a consent application, 15C1, which is a drinking water report, and 15D1, which is the Lame Duck Council report. And so we'll deal with everything else. The recommendation is that all items listed under items for consideration on the February 9th, 2026 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. So we'll move on to 15B2, This is the consent application for 10013776663 Ontario Inc. This is application consent application B 85-25. There's a fairly lengthy recommendation that I trust you have in front of you. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor McCabe, Councillor Rankin, thank you. Questions, comments on this one? Councillor Rankin, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. I just had a few questions. One was in the diagram, they showed the north-south, if you want, line at quite a diagonal angle. I'm just wondering if there's any reason if it could be brought up and then shorten the amount of acreage that's going to be severed.
Curtis, are you able to help with that?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Lennox, to Councillor Rankin. So in planning staff's preliminary report, we did identify there could be an opportunity to shrink the lot even a little more. It looks like the applicant has proposed already to shrink the lot based on what they use as the residential use right now. You see there was a old shed that they're not including and part of the lawn. So if council did want it further, I'll call it squared up, that rear lot line being parallel with Highway 6, that'd be about another half acre that the lot would retain with the farm.
Okay, thank you. Can I continue? Okay. Okay. On the diagram as well, on the severed portion, there was like a cloud. I was just wondering what that was and if there had been a reason that the line had sort of gone around it.
I think it's trees, Penny.
Councillor Rankin, depiction of trees?
Sorry?
It's a depiction for trees.
Trees? Oh, okay, thank you. And just one more question. And would the access to the farmland be off Wells Road West?
Through Mayor Lennox to Councillor Rankin. Yes, my understanding is it is right now identified as being off of Wells for tractors and equipment, and my understanding is that would remain.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on this one? So, given the potential for a reduction of, do we need to do anything further to convey that message?
So looking at the comments, so I guess that wouldn't be a condition, that would be a comment from the township. So we may, if you wish to reduce it, you may have as part of your resolution that you recommend that it be reduced or reconfigured, the rear lot line be reconfigured to be parallel with Highway 6. And then you provide your conditions.
That's typically what we do. I'm not going to speak for the rest of council at this point, but we've been pretty adamant about limiting the size of these.
Yep. Excuse me, yes.
So can we add a?
I think I wouldn't make it part of the recommendation. I think you would just add it that staff be directed to work with the applicant on further reducing the lot size.
I think this should just be a recommendation from the township to land division. Yeah. So ultimately that land division would have it's the township's comment that, generally you support it subject to reduction, and you've provided, regardless you have of the decision of land division, you provided your conditions.
So in addition to that big recommendation, there would be another clause, and further that staff be directed to work with the applicant to.
I was thinking that there wouldn't be any further work to be done. The township would suggest that it be reduced. So I'm suggesting maybe that council support consent application be 85-25 the following conditions. We need to change that support, the reference to supporting it.
Okay. Just read that again. to me.
Okay, so that the second recommendation. So we need to revise the second recommendation and that council support consent application. So we could say in that council support consent application subject to,
A reduced lot size?
yeah. Maybe with a rear lot line parallel with Highway 6.
Okay.
Yeah, who had moved and second that?
It was, Counselor McCabe and Counselor Rankin.
So you're both okay with that addition?
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. On to C1. This is the Drinking Water System Annual and Summary Report. We have a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report ENV 2026-001, which is the 2025 Drinking Water Systems Annual and Summary Report. And further, the council directs staff to submit the report to the applicable agencies and make the report available to the public. They get a mover, Councilor McCabe, seconded by Councilor Burke. Questions, comments? Councilor McCabe?
Yes, we do have Kyle and Corey and Danielle on the call.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. On page 22 of this report, under expenses incurred, there's a total of, I would say, 751,000. Was this regular maintenance or planned and budgeted for, or was it issues that happened? And if so, where did that money come from?
Corey, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McCabe, and through you, Mayor Lennox. Yeah, that money was all planned for, budgeted using capital and operating dollars. No surprises there. All planned work.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions, Councilor McCabe?
Just a quick one as well, just with respect to the water quality, both in Mount Forest and in Arthur. On a, I would say, a scale of 1 to 10, where would we be? It sounds like it's fantastic, but I just wanted to hear it from you guys.
Yeah, again, through you, Mayor Lennox, to Councillor McCabe. Yeah, both Arthur and Mount Forest water quality does exceed the regulatory limits for all the parameters that are listed in the Ontario Drinking Water Standards. So, yeah, the quality is good. We're dealing with groundwater, which tends to be fairly stable in quality as it compares to surface water. So, again, we do pretty good in that department.
Great, thank you, Corey. And finally, one last kick at the can. I don't know if this is for Kyle or Danielle. How would we compare to our neighbors like Minto, Mableton, Center Wellington, Southgate, West Gray? With water quality, sorry.
I can take a quick stab again.
Okay, sorry.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. Just again, all of our neighbors are also dealing with groundwater wells, not surface water. And again, they tend to be fairly stable sources as it relates to limited contamination. We do deal with some issues like iron and manganese and some of the minerals that is fairly common in groundwater. But other than that, stable. So I would suspect that our neighboring municipalities are dealing with similar water quality. But maybe Danielle or Kyle would like to chime in.
All right. Thank you, Corey.
Okay. Did you have further comments, Kyle?
Just through you, Mayor Lennox. Yes, I'd agree with what Corey said. It's very similar in the neighboring municipalities as well.
All right. Any other questions, comments from council? Councilor Rankin?
Thank you. I just one out of curiosity, on the sodium for well number 5, it was quite high with 68.8. I'm just wondering what would cause something like to increase so drastically.
Right.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. There hasn't been a huge increase. I think that Frank alluded to it in his presentation earlier, that we're aware that the sodium is elevated at well number 5. It is below the Ontario drinking water standard aesthetic objective of 200 milligrams per liter, but anything over 20 milligrams per liter needs to be communicated to the local public health unit. And that's so that they can inform doctors in the area that may have patients on sodium restricted diets. But other than that, we are below the 200 milligrams per liter aesthetic objective. We're required to sample every 5 years. We're being a little more proactive and sampling it every year. We're sampling it annually to just to continue to monitor the trends. We're not seeing significant increases. It is fairly stable. And we do work very close with the team at Wellington Source Water Protection, and they're in the process of also developing risk management plans as it relates to winter maintenance in areas surrounding all wells within the county. So that's something else that we're doing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but the fact that this is only in one well and that we're managing the water supply from a variety of wells, that we're able to get the actual level in the delivered water to the resident's faucet at much lower levels of sodium than that, even what is present in that well.
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor Lennox. It is a looped system, so all the water that's pumped at different times throughout the day from different wells tends to mix within the standpipe, and what's coming say out of the source is probably different than it will be different than what's coming out the tap. But this is not we're not the only ones that are noticing, that have issues, and maybe Kyle can speak to this, but that see higher levels of sodium in our wells across the county or the province for that matter.
Kyle, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Lennox. Yes, Corey's correct. This is an overall trend that we are seeing in some of the groundwater systems, both in the county and also in the province. It does tend to be in the more urbanized systems, so you're seeing much higher levels in some of the larger urban municipalities, such as the region of Waterloo, City of Guelph, places like that. However, we also see that within the county as well, where we have some higher levels of sodium and chloride tracking in Center Wellington as well. So this is something that all of the water operators are keeping an eye on, and Wellington North is doing exactly what others are doing too in terms of monitoring and keeping an eye on this.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, then I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the report with regard to the municipal election. We have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information report CLK 2026-003 restricted acts in a municipal and school board election, or lame duck. Can I get a mover or a seconder for that, please? Councillor McCabe and Councillor Rankin. Thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor McCabe?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox. I was hoping that maybe Karen or Brooke could give us an example or an instance of what would happen if lame duck came to our council chambers, I guess.
So there are 4 restrictions that if you're in a lame duck situation, so you can't hire or fire anybody from the municipality or a officer like our CAO. You don't hire or dismiss other employees anyway, so that's not really it's not going to hinder you. You can't sell anything which has a value over $50,000 at the time when you dispose it, and you can't incur expenditures over $50,000. That's just council. So what you have done in our delegation of authority bylaw is Brooke has all of those delegated authorities. Now, if it was an emergency, and it would have to be a true emergency, like say the water tower fell over and you had to borrow $8 million to buy a new one, but it has to be a true emergency. And this rule is in place so outgoing councils who may not be in the best of mood if they don't get reelected. They want to go out and just create chaos for the next council. And so this has been in place for quite a while.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to notice of motion. Any notice of motion this afternoon? Seeing none, we'll move on to community group meeting program report. Anybody have any meetings that they can get out in this cold weather to attend that they'd like to report on? Councillor McCabe?
I haven't been out in this weather that for that matter, but I have Roma meeting on Thursday and Friday coming up.
Okay. Thank you. Any other reports that anyone would like to contribute? Councillor Burke?
And we are having a aquatics meeting tomorrow, but it's scheduled via Zoom just so that we could alleviate any conflicts with the winter weather. So happy to get back together with the committee as a whole, provide them some updates with our experience at Roma, and get back on track with fundraising.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else they'd like to report on? Okay, we'll move on then, seeing none. We're on to bylaws. Just a reminder that we pulled the one in the agenda package, so we're just dealing with two bylaws. The recommendation is that bylaw number 009-2026 and 010-2026 be read and passed. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Thank you. Any questions or comments on those? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Cultural moment. Marvin Howe is the subject today.
The Wellington North Cultural Roundtable presents A Cultural Moment, Marvin Howe. Marvin Howe was born on February 24, 1906 and was raised in Palmerston. His first career was as a school teacher in Port Arthur until his father became very ill. Marvin returned to Palmerston to run the family business of George Howe & Son, a grocery and dry goods store. In 1934, he took over the business formerly owned and operated by J.A. Stevenson on the corner of George and Frederick Streets in Arthur. Mr. Howe in his life in Arthur was not content to be just a businessman, but decided early in his career to devote part of his efforts to public life. This ambition has resulted in him being Member of Parliament for Wellington Huron from 1953 to 1972, successfully retaining the seat for the Conservative Party in 3 elections. He also served the public in the following positions: Public School Trustee, Councillor of Arthur Village, Reeve of Arthur, and the Arthur Drayton Area High School Board. Marvin Howe married Helen Blair. After the marriage, they lived in a house built by her grandfather. Together, they raised 4 children. After retiring from politics, Howe was appointed to the board of directors of Bell Thread Company of Arthur, the Victorian Order of Nurses, and the local food bank. In 1993, he was honored by the VON for his 19 years of volunteer work. Marvin stayed highly active in the community, especially in the Lions Club. He was a charter member of the Arthur Lions Club, a member of the Prince Arthur Masonic Lodge Branch 334, and a member of the Arthur United Church. Mr. Howe enjoyed daily walks when he would often chat with neighbors and friends along the way. In his later days, he would often be seen with a young boy chatting up a storm as they strolled along together. That boy was Ted Arnott.
As always, another good story. So upcoming meetings, our next council roundtable is February the 12th at noon, and our next council meeting is the 23rd at 7 p.m. So move on to our confirming bylaw, and the recommendation I have is that bylaw number 11-2026, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North at its regular council meeting held on February 9th, 2026, be read and passed. Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor McCabe. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We got the same recommendation here again. Oh no,
No, are we good?
it's okay. No, it's me that's the problem. No, it's a duplication. This is because you changed the numbering, so this is no. All right. Thanks, everybody. So just the adjournment left, so I have a recommendation that the regular council meeting of February 9th, 2026 be adjourned at 3:27 PM. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. All those in favor? That's carried. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.